Chapter 8, Lesson 5. How can you use diagrams, equations, and story problems to represent division? In today's lesson, we're going to be using different strategies that we've learned throughout this short chapter. So let's start with unlock the problem. Elizabeth has 6 cups of raisins. She divides the raisins into 1/4 cup servings. How many servings does she have? Underline what you're being asked to find, circle the important information, and make a little mark with the words that tell you if you're going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. In this case, we know it's division, so what words would give you the clue that it's division? So you should have underlined how many servings does she have, circled 6 cups, and then circled 1/4 cups. And then in this word problem, they use the word divide. So that's why I put my division symbol over that word. And then in this green box, how many 1/4 cups are in 1 cup? So basically they're asking how many 1/4 cups are in 1 cup, because 1/4 is the same as a quarter. And so how many quarters are there in 1? There are 4. And how many cups does Elizabeth have? She has 6. So we can use a different variety of strategies. We're going to try 2 of them. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to draw a diagram to solve. So we're going to draw 6 rectangles to represent the cups. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to divide each of these rectangles into fourths. Now I made them tall just to kind of represent the cups. You could have made them lengthwise more horizontal. And then divide them into fourths. Alright, so then I divided them horizontally. Now they're not perfect, but it's a diagram, it's just a sketch. And then now to find 6 divided by 1/4, we're going to count the total number of fourths in the 6th. So we're taking 6, we're dividing it by 1/4, and how many are there total? Well, there's 4 in each rectangle, and there are 6 rectangles. Remember, our algorithm is to use the reciprocal, that's to flip our second number. So we have 6 groups of 4, that equals 24. So how many servings does Elizabeth have? Elizabeth has 24 servings. Okay, let's look at our example 1. This one, we're going to spend most of our time on the equation. So, 4 friends share 1/4 of a gallon of orange juice. What fraction of a gallon of orange juice does each friend get? Again, underline what you're being asked to find, circle the important information, and then make a mark above the words that tell you what operation you are going to be using. Okay, you should have underlined what fraction of a gallon of orange juice does each friend get, and then circled how much they shared, which was 1/4 of a gallon, and how many people shared it, 4. And how do we know that this is division? Well, the word share, when you're sharing something, generally you're divvying it up or you're breaking it into pieces and dividing it between people or things. So the word share is our clue that this is a division problem. So our first step is to write an equation. So how much of the thing are they starting with? They're starting with 1/4, okay? And what are we dividing that by? How many people in this case are sharing the 1/4 of a gallon? Well, we circled 4, there's 4 friends. So we're doing 1/4 divided by 4. Now we know our answer should end up being smaller than either of our numbers because we're starting with a fraction and breaking it into even smaller pieces. So we have 1/4 divided by 4 equals n. N is just a variable that lets us know that that's what we're looking for. Next, we're going to write the related multiplication equation to solve. Okay, so we have 1/4 divided by 4. What do we do to our second number? Well, we need to use the reciprocal, and that means we need to flip it. Okay, so remember that you can write a whole number like that, 4/1 equals 4. And so if we flip that, we are going to have it be 1 over 4. So let's multiply 1/4 times 1/4. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. And so each friend will get how much of a gallon of orange juice? They will get 1/16. And this picture helps verify your equation. In this example, you get to create your own story problem. So the directions say write a story problem, then draw a diagram to solve. So 4 divided by 1/3. That is the equation that your story problem needs to lead to. So we need to choose an item that you want to divide. They're thinking sandwiches, ribbon, pies, food, candy, treats. Maybe you need to cut up a piece of wood for something. This is where you get to be creative. What do you want to divide? Okay? And remember, you're going to be thinking about how many groups of 1/3 are in 4 of these holes. Okay? And then you need to write a story problem where you're dividing that into 1/3 pieces. So are you going to cut it? Are you going to give away certain parts? Are you going to have each person eat so much of something? How are you going to have that divided into thirds? And then at the end, you have to make sure that you ask a question that asks how many thirds are there. Okay, that's how we know that we're dividing by thirds. So press pause, think about it. What do you want your story problem to be about? Here is my personal story problem, and if yours is worded differently, that is definitely okay. Mine says, Mrs. Udy had blank candy bars she wanted to share. If she broke them into blank pieces, how many people could she share with? Okay, so let's just finish actually filling this in. How many candy bars do I need to start with? I need to start with 4. And then what size pieces do I need them to break into? Well, to match our division equation, we need them broken into 1/3 size pieces. Okay, so the next step is you need to draw a diagram for your problem. So go ahead and make sure you draw a diagram that helps you show the solution to 4 divided by 1/3. I chose to draw horizontal rectangles because I feel like that looks like a candy bar and it's pretty simple. And I broke it into third pieces, so how many pieces are there? Well, I can do my multiplication, flipping my 1/3, that would be 3 over 1, or I could just count the pieces, and either way, I end up with the answer of 12. I could share with 12 people. So number 3 is going to be the exact same thing. You're going to write a story problem and then draw a diagram to solve it. Only this time, you're going to start with a fraction. You're going to start with a half of something. So if you go back a page, you remember they started with 1/4 of a gallon of orange juice that they were sharing. So what's something that you could start with a half of and then share it or break it up? We have, they have half a pizza, half a yard of rope, half a gallon of milk. So create your own story problem where you start with a half and break it into 5 pieces again. Then draw your diagram so that you can show that your equation works. All right, here's my story problem. Mrs. Udy has blank of a yard of ribbon to make blank hair bows for her daughter. How much ribbon can she use for each bow? Okay, so how much of ribbon do I have to start with? I have 1/2 of a yard of ribbon to start with. And how many hair bows do I need to break that up between? I need to make 5 hair bows. And so how much ribbon can she use for each ribbon or each bow? Well, I would need to take my 1/2 of a yard and divide it by 5. Next, I'll show you my diagram. Okay, so for my diagram, I drew a picture of just what I would call a yard of ribbon, and then I cut it in half, and I'm only focused on the 1/2 because that's what I started with. and then I needed to divide that by 5. So I made sure I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces within my half. But I also need to know what this fraction is because I need one of those. Like I need to know what size one of those are. And so I had to continue breaking this up all the way to the 1. So how many pieces are there? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So one size piece for one bow is going to be 1/10. And I could do the same thing by, remember, this could be 5 over 1 right here. If I flip that over and make the reciprocal, that would be 1 over 5. So let's just take that off right here. So that would be 1 over 5. 1 times 1 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 5 is 10. And I'm going to also make that a multiplication. So then my answer is 1/10. Today's share and show is short and sweet. You have 3 problems. Make sure that you read all the directions and that you do every single part of it. So press pause while you work on your share and show. Okay, so number 1. Carmen has a roll of paper that is blank feet long. She cuts that paper into pieces that are each blank foot long. How many pieces of paper does Carmen have? Okay, so using 3 divided by 1/4, what do you fill in for each of those? Well, we know she starts with something that is 3 feet long, and we need to break it into pieces that are each 1/4. And that's all that number 1 asks you to do, is fill in the story problem. And number 2, they tell you to draw a diagram to represent the problem and then solve it. So this means I need to see the picture. April has 6 fruit bars. She cut the bars into halves. How many 1/2 size bar pieces does she have? You should stay in your practice of underlining what you're being asked to find and circling the important information. Okay? So let's see. 6 divided by 1/2. Let's draw 6 bars. Now, oops, that looks more like a square, but that's okay. We'll just keep going. These are just sketches and diagrams to get us going. And then she cut them in half. So we're just going to do one line right down the middle to make them in halves. Okay? So now, how many half-size bar pieces does she have? Well, we have 6 rectangles with 2 in each of them. 6 times 2, that means she is going to have 12 pieces. And then number 3, it says, write an equation to represent the problem, then solve. So 2 friends share 1/4 of a large peach pie. What fraction of the whole pie does each friend get? Okay, what are you being asked to find? You're asked what fraction of the whole pie does each friend get? And there's 2 friends and they're sharing 1/4. Okay? So we're starting with what? We're starting with the pie. That's what's being broken up. So that's 1/4, and we're dividing it by how many people? 2. And just to keep the algebraic part going, we'll just use an n here because that's what we're looking for. Okay, now let's rewrite this in our multiplication sentence. So we keep our 1/4, and we know that 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. So if we flip it and use our reciprocal, we have 1 over 2. Multiply across, 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 2 is 8. So that means they would have 1/8 of the whole pie because they asked specifically for the whole pie. Okay, so 1/8 of the whole pie. You may now go ahead and work on your other tasks.